Well, everybody, we continue to watch, continue to wait. I kind of want to remind you of the things going on. I mean, we were told there'd be wars and rumors of wars, that the time is not yet. But I want to remind you who the players are. It's the usual suspects. The number one player, of course, on the list is Iran. So Iran, come on down. They're teaching children that if they can be a part of World War III to help get it started, that there'd be a special reward for them in heaven. I think God talked about children that they should have a stone tied around their neck and thrown in the river if you corrupt or hurt a child. It would be better for them to have that happen. But we have to wait. Their punishment is coming. But just recently, a couple of young men, I think they were 19, 20, 21, something like that, with a knife and a hatchet, murdered a couple of men just out, doing nothing. What kind of God do you have that would kill innocent people? We have a God of love. He would never tolerate that. Satan is a God of hate, little g, God of hate. Because he is ruler of this world, but not the universe. He's still trying to do things, but he's restricted. The restrainer is still keeping him from doing what he wants to do. Okay, so Iran funneling arms across or into Syria, and then maybe further on they might be helping the Russians. Whatever they're doing, they're building up for an attack. Ramadan has come and gone, and there was nothing major. Yeah, there were some complaints up on the mount, and they're up there saying Israel's trying to start a war with us because they're going in and destroying our temple and whatever. They're lying. But their media and a lot of the world media will get behind that lie and treat it as if it were the truth. Because too many people are tied to the world's leader. Okay, so Iran is continuing its normal thing, but they haven't done anything yet, so I'm expecting something soon. Let's look at North Korea. They launched, I think it's the 15th intercontinental ballistic missile. It's not armed, they're testing their missiles. They claim that if they get a nuke, they're going to launch it. Their big brother China right behind them. If they were to turn around and China was tied up in a war and couldn't help defend them, I wonder what Korea would do, North Korea. I think they'd go into a hidey hole and you wouldn't hear from them. Because they don't have any power. Any country in the world could just about wipe them out. If they get off one nuke, that would be the only one they get off and the last one they ever launch. Because we will go in there and take out their leader very quickly, no matter where he hides. But they're mouthing off because they've got China, who's also acting boldly. In the absence of power in the world, these little dictators have to come to the surface. The lack of power is the lack of U.S. power. Okay, it says China's acting tough. They took some of their military jets and did another flyover of Taiwan. Now, they want that to be part of China. If we were to want Cuba, it would be the same type of thing. It's just right off the shore. They want control of it. And I think when things get busy, war-wise, or with something else going on, they will try something. I think they're afraid that if they try it now, they'd lose. But if everybody's distracted, they might be able to get in there. So we have Iran, North Korea, China. We can, of course, have all of Iran's proxies. Hamas, Hezbollah, all of them. They're all just stockpiling. They're waiting. Someone's going to call the race and they're going to be off. And what they did with Hamas last year was a test. Those are not very accurate missiles that were launched, and they're not very expensive. They've been stockpiling very precision missiles, and they've got thousands more. I don't know if they have enough armament. God will have to step in at some point. And of course, we've got Russia, this Ukraine bit. The reports are coming out from Ukraine and from Western sources that Russia's losing big time. Don't you believe it? That's what they want you to think, because they're not doing anything. If they knew Russia was winning and they were really treating people badly, they should step in. And we'd call them cowards for not. So they lie. Oh, then nothing's happening. Just there's nothing here. Just keep moving, folks. They have very sophisticated drones now. We are getting a chance to see those work, and they work very well. It's kind of like the Terminator drones. They fly around with guns and they can shoot people. They're not as advanced as the Terminator ones, because those are in the future. But these are the beginning stages of them. They're all getting ready for something. And they all talk. They get together and have these meetings all the time. China met with Russia. Iran meets with Russia. They're all getting together. Turkey doesn't have the power right now, and Russia's ruble, their dollar, has come back to where it was before the war started. It dipped because they were concerned. They're still selling their oil. The world's going on with all this going on, and you're looking at the three monkeys. You know, I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. I'm not going to say anything. The world is a joke. And the U.S. that used to be a stable force is not. It's not doing anything. We're a joke. And the world is laughing at us. The world understands what's going on. They know just as well as we do that this, I don't know if I can say it, singular world. I have a ham on rye. Did I get my order right? I got to be careful I don't get filtered. I said something a few weeks ago that did give me a hit mark. They count them as they start reviewing your video, but they took it away at the end, so I think I maybe said something that sounded like it hit the filter, but it really didn't. We're being conditioned, and the thing is, the Antichrist does not want to deal with the one world order. He will run it, but that's not what they want. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions and comments about there's no rapture, there's only a rapture at the end. That's because you guys have got to, those that have that belief have to look at all the scripture. There are plenty of references to the second coming, the day of the Lord. That's at the end. We all agree on that. But I want to start in 1 Thessalonians. Paul writing to those in Thessalonica. Okay, the first thing he starts off with is telling the people just to be kind through these times, because They were having tribulation back then too. Not the tribulation, but tribulation. But concerning brotherly love, goes in the blooper reel. But concerning brotherly love, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. And indeed, you do so toward all brethren who are in Macedonia. But we urge you, brethren, that you increase more and more, that you aspire to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your own hands, as we commanded you, that you may walk properly towards those who are outside, and that you may lack nothing. We have overcast skies. There's a plane flying trying to stay below the clouds. That's hard to do. I've done that. You just got to touch the clouds with your wings, but you got to be below them. And then you can stay VFR, visual flight rules. Otherwise, you have to have an advanced pilot degree, if you will, for instrument flight rules, IFR. And most small plane pilots don't have that. Commercial pilots, military pilots, they all understand all that. But if you just got a small plane, it costs a lot more to get an instrument rating. Okay. I didn't tell you where this was at, did I? 1 Thessalonians 4:13 is where I started. 4:9 is where I started. And we're going to go to 4:13. But I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning those that have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as others have, for those that have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so will bring with him those who sleep in Jesus. We're starting to talk about now Jesus coming back. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up, raptured, together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore comfort one another. You've got to understand that there's two things talked about. Rapture events, this is what he's talking about, coming in the clouds, and the second coming. The second coming, he's coming with an army. It is not a quiet little thing happening. Okay, now it talks about, and let's go on now to chapter 5. But concerning the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when we say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. See, peace and safety. We appear to be in peace and safety. Everybody's happy. We're all singing Kumbaya, holding hands, running through the fields of flowers, not paying attention at all. We are, but the world's not. We know that something calm like this is a bad sign, not a good sign. Now don't be afraid. We're just told about it so we know not to be afraid of it. But it is what could be the beginning of the end. We're the restrainer. The Antichrist needs a free reign. Okay. Okay, but and they say not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. You are all sons of light and sons of day. For we are not night, nor of the darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as others do. Let us watch and be sober. Talking about not paying attention. Before the flood, they were carrying on as normal, not paying attention. That's out of 1 Thessalonians. I want to turn over to 2nd now, continuing on this story. We just heard a lot what the Thessalonians heard back then from these letters and from them directly. Times were tough. All the way up, pretty much through the 2nd century, Christians were persecuted very harshly. Some of the Jews were persecuting them. They didn't want them to change their way of life, their religion. The Jewish leaders killed Christ, remember? So there's an animosity there, and they were beginning to set up in Jerusalem. James, they're helping out with that, and John, but Paul was sent off to the Gentiles. So he didn't have that opposition, but he had Rome. That was still all under Roman control, Roman occupation. And as long as Romans could do what they wanted to do and not have any pushback, they were okay. But they didn't want competition. They didn't want a second king, a second leader. So after Caesar was killed, their replacements, and they kind of broke into two pieces. No experience. They just inherited what was there. Began killing people they didn't like. It's the same thing that's going on now. That's not the sign of a leader. You don't kill people you don't like. You influence them. You convert them. You bring them over to your side. Not by force. They can't come by force. If they're afraid, then you failed. A good leader simply leads. Okay, let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1. Now, brethren, concerning the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, we ask you not to be soon shaken in mind or in trouble, either by spirit or by the word or the letter, as it is from us, as though the day of Christ had come. People were writing to them, telling them that they missed the rapture. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. So we know that there are two things to watch for. The beginning of all this stuff is going to start off with a bang, and that's the reason for the rapture. But then there's going to be continuing fighting. We have all the Revelation horses and seals, and it's not going to be pretty. But we're not subject to wrath. I think that was a little further on if I'd have read further. We don't deserve the wrath. And that's the only reason for the rapture. Satan's going to come down here, with or without Antichrist. He may do it first, he may wait until the Antichrist is here, but he's going to attack Christians, try to eliminate us. He's got a very little window. His time is short. He's going to see what he can do. That's the only reason we're raptured. People have been killed in millions throughout history. There was never a need for a rapture. But to wipe out all of Christ's chosen, he could do that. Today we could do that. We have the weapons. And I told you what they're doing. They're testing the missiles, they're testing drones, they're stockpiling everything that they need to begin destroying Christians and Jews. when the Antichrist gets here, in order to stay alive, you're going to have to be martyred. So if you put off accepting Christ now, well, you're going to lose your head over it, because that's the only two choices you've got. Accept him now freely while it's calm, or come crying to him saying, I'm sorry, I should have accepted you and I didn't. You have to accept Christ into your heart, accept his free gift. It is a free gift. If you look at the laws that were handed down, they were required to sacrifice for their sins. That was the only way to keep God's grace. And they got to see many times what happened when they didn't. They were captured and sent off to Babylonia for 70 years because they didn't follow one of the rules. God didn't put the rules there just because he had nothing to do that day. They're designed to help. They're designed by a loving God to help. But they thought they knew better. We have to stay focused. In the beginning, of course, they did it right. But over the generations, they started slipping and losing sight of what God was and what God wanted. You have to first respect the Lord. If you don't understand who he is and have respect for him, you're not going to want to do the things that he's asked us to do. So when we suffer, sometimes it's because he's strengthening us. But sometimes when we suffer, it's because we're disobedient. And God is doing everything he can. He won't hold you down and tickle you until you agree to accept him or other things. He wants you to freely accept Christ, accept the love that's given and offered to you. It only has a good outcome. All right. We continue to wait and watch. Things continue to kind of slowly churn. Someone's stirring the pot. But they're going to eventually get to the point where they're going to get the go-ahead, and then someone's going to turn the flame up. We're not going to know when. It's not for us to know. But we do know that from start to finish, it's a maximum of 7 years. Some think that we've already gone through half of it. Perhaps we have. It's the second half that's the really bad part anyway. But having 1 million or more Jews killed and the temple torn down, that would have been bad enough to be part of the tribulation. Why is there a long gap? I don't know. The reason we're given is that God is patient and waiting for every soul to be saved. Well, I accept that. But again, why the long wait? Why is it 2,000 years and not 500 years or 1,000 years? Or if it's trying to get every soul saved, why have an end? Let's just keep going. God has already planned this out. And he's got the timing perfect. Imagine being a fisherman. You're sitting on the bank and you see the biggest fish coming at you. And you get your rod and reel ready. You can see in the water and see where the fish is. And just as the fish is getting to come by, you cast right in front of him your bait. That's an experienced fisherman. Now back in Jesus' time, they used nets. But just a rod and reel, knowing where the fish is, you could do that. God knows where everything is. So everything is well orchestrated. All right. I thought about going in and cutting out my twisted tongue and sticking it at the end for a blooper, but I'll just leave it in place. You would have already seen it by now, so just imagine me collecting a bunch of those. I have a bunch, but I don't do them so much on this phone anymore when I used to record in the studios, I had a lot more bloopers. But I could cut them out. I could edit them. What you see is what you get. I'm doing these live. Sometimes I will change location. But this is in one spot. It's a gloomy day, fully overcast. The temperature this morning was about 52. Come on, this is May. I think towards the end of the week we're going to get up to a high of 80. Normally by now we're pushing 100. Well, we got plenty of summer coming. But just like the world, this temperature is in a holding pattern. I'm prepared for the hot. I'm also prepared for the cold. We don't know what's next. So whatever it is, be prepared for it. All right, that's all I have for this video today. We're kind of just waiting and watching. We know what's coming. And there are going to be those that argue against it. Doesn't matter. If you want to say the tribulation is only at the end, I'll be able to give you a big hug in the clouds and tell you, see, I told you. We don't have to go through all the bad stuff. But it's not going to be perfect. So be sure, if you can, hug your friends and loved ones down here. Even if they don't go with us on the first round, if you've done anything at all to help them, to talk to them, to plant the seeds, God will work on them. He will give them special treatment because there's someone that you care for and God cares for you. Now, there are people out there that are just never going to get it. Hopefully it's not one of your loved ones. But if you pray for them, miracles happen. Okay, bye for now.